this video, we're going to learn about vModel. vModel is binding when using forms like an input or a select and data. So let me open up VS Code. I'm going to also open up Google Chrome to my project, and let's see. All right, so here we go. We have our application and we're using a component called cat card, and we're looping through a list of cats, and then we're displaying each cat in a card. But for my application, I want to be able to add more cats to the list without coming into the code right here and adding a new item to the list. So we're going to check out vModel, and we're going to set up our application to insert a new cat to this list of cats. First thing I want to do is come up here and let's create a space for this form input to go. We're going to put this inside. We'll create a class, and we're just going to call this the new cat class. And inside of that, let's add a title. We'll use some H3 tags, and we'll just say add a cat. Okay, and when we add a cat, we know that we have some properties down here. We know we have an ID, a title, a message, a link, visible, color. So let's go ahead and drop in some of these properties so that a user can input the specific information. I'm going to put each one inside of a div. All right, and the first one we'll do title, and I'm going to put it inside of a span. All right, and we'll say title and then a colon, and then right next to it, let's do input. And the type of input, we'll do a type of text. All right. So I'm going to save that, and we auto update it over here. So we see our add a cat, and then we have this title, label, and an input box. So let's create a couple more of these. All right, so we have title, we'll do message, let's do link, and we'll do image. We'll say image URL. All right, we'll save that. So now we have a couple different labels and input boxes, and let's go ahead and put a little CSS on this just to make it look a little nicer. I don't want to go crazy on CSS. This isn't a CSS tutorial, but what did we call this? We called it new cat. So let's come down here and we'll just say new cat, and we'll give it a width of 300 pixels. We'll give it a border so it looks a little nicer of 1 pixel. We'll do it solid, and we'll just do like a light gray. All right, and let's see what that looks like. All right, so it moved us over to the side, and let's do padding, and we'll do 10 pixels, and we'll see what that looks like. All right, we want to center this little box too, so let's do margin 0 auto. Let's see if that centers us. All right, so we're back in the center, and let's give it a little breathing room between the bottom here. So we'll do margin dash bottom, and we'll just do 20 pixels. All right, there we go. So now we have this little box to add a cat. So let's jump into vModel and what vModel does. So we have these inputs here, and if we type in here, it doesn't do anything, it doesn't go anywhere. We could do value equals and just say cat. All right, it didn't auto refresh, but there we go. So we could put a value in here of cat by default, but Vue has this idea, they call it V models, and what it allows you to do is bind the value here to your data properties down here. So if we come and we'll just call this, we'll call it new cat, all right, and it's going to be an object. Let's put a comma down here. And the first thing we had was title, and we'll leave that blank. And then we did a message, but we're calling it MSG, and we'll leave that blank. We did link, we'll leave that blank. And then we'll do, we said image. So we'll do that. So now we have this in our data properties, we have a new cat object. Now we can bind this input value right here to this new cat and then title. And I'm going to show you how. So in Vue, let's jump over here. We'll go to vuejs.org. We'll click on learn, and let's just search V model, and then we have this directive of V model. And it says V model expects varies based on value of form inputs element or output of components. And it says it's limited to an input, a select, a text area, and components. So we have this V model here, and it's a directive. So let's do v-model, and we're going to say it equals, and we want to make it equal to this new cat title. So we can do new cat to get the object, and then title to bind it to that specific property in our new cat. So I'm going to save that. All right, and we don't see anything here. The reason we're not seeing anything is because we didn't give the title a default. Typically you wouldn't have a default in here, but just to make sure that this is working, let's do this as hello cats, and we'll save. And we can see it just updated right here. So we're binding this first input type text. We're using V model and then equals, and we're binding this input to the new cat and title. Let's go ahead, and for the message we'll say we love cats. For the link we'll do well, we know from our previous video we want to do http://www, and we'll say for a link we'll just do welovecats.com. And for our image, let's grab an image that we can input. We'll go to google.com, square pictures of cats, images, and we'll use this one right here. We'll say copy image address, and we'll put that right here. Cool. Now if we come back over to our blog, I'm going to save this, and we didn't change anything because we still need to bind these, the message, the link, and the image URL. So I'm going to copy this right here and paste it for each one of these, and then let's change this. So we have message new cat, and we called it MSG. So MSG. For the link we have new cat and then link, and then for the image we have new cat and then image. So when I save this, we're expecting to see all these data properties right over here in our add a cat. Awesome. So we're using the V model, and we're binding each input to some data properties down here. So this is something that we use a lot in Vue JS with the V model and binding input text areas and selects, as they said over here, to data properties. Typically by default these would be empty. I wanted to show you how this works, and let's jump into the Vue DevTools real quick because this is something that you'll use a lot. I'm using Option Command I on my Mac to pull up the Chrome developer tools, and then if you haven't seen it already, I did a video on how to install the Vue DevTools, which will give you this tab right here. So I'm going to click on this. All right, And we get this little tree over here, but if we click on app and we expand that, and I'm going to click on the app itself, we can see everything that we have over here. So we have our list of cats, it's an array. And if we scroll down, that's this right here, list of cats. We have a new cat, which is right here, and that's an object, and it'll show you the properties of what the new cat object contains. A lot of times when I'm debugging or trying to troubleshoot an issue, I'll come down here into the Vue DevTools, and you want to see maybe for some reason your application isn't getting the new cat. Maybe you called it something different. Maybe it's on the wrong component. So it's nice to be able to pull up these DevTools and see what's actually being passed to the component we have. The other cool thing is if I delete this, we can see it automatically shows me in real time that I just deleted the title. Now, if you look down here, if I go ahead and type a new title, this is a cat, it's automatically showing up down here. So a lot of times, maybe you have a key up event or a key down event. You could use this events tab over here. We're not going to dive into all that, but it's important to know that for each component and each item on your page, you can troubleshoot it down here in the Vue DevTools. So I'm going to close this for right now. Now that we know that our data binding is working, we're binding our title, our message, our link, and our image URL. While I'm in here, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to add a visible true for our new cat. We're just going to set it for a default. So right after link, I'm going to do visible true, and anything else? I think we got rid of our color and our background. Let's double check on our cat card. We're not using any of the colors of the backgrounds. We went over and we switched this out to use CSS. So we're not using any of these properties. We're not passing in any of these properties. So we can probably get rid of those at this point. I'm just going to take them out so it's not confusing. All right, we'll get rid of this one. And let's get rid of this one. Let me save to make sure I didn't break anything. All right, there we go. Refresh just to double check. All right, so it looks like we're good. One of the other properties we have down here is an ID. Now, a lot of times when you're receiving a list from an API, we'll have an ID. And if we look up here, we're using the item ID for the vbind key. When you're using v4, it requires the vbind key. So each individual item that it loops through, it gets a unique ID. Now, when we're creating a new cat, we don't want to ask the user to supply their own ID because that just doesn't make any sense. So we want to automatically supply an ID. Down here, we used an ID, but v4 actually, what they allow us to do is we can put this item into parentheses, and we can say item, comma, index. And then instead of vbind key and using the item ID, we can actually use the index of the array. So if I change this to index, now we're using the index of the array. So this, instead of ID of 1, it'll probably actually be 0 because we know arrays start at 0. So let me get rid of these IDs. All right, and then I'm going to Command S to save. All right, and we broke this a little bit, and I think that's because we were checking for a specific ID number. We no longer have our IDs, but this was just an example, so let me go ahead and get rid of this. It's not really necessary. And I'm going to go back and set all my cats to true just to use this for the list. We'll say true, and let's pass a value here of visible and true. So, all right, cool. We used these classes before for a previous tutorial to show how class binding and style binding works. We're past that now, so let's just go ahead and show all the cats. So one of the cool things about vModel is that you can show a preview where we already have this data and we're already binding it to our vModel, our return data down here of new cat. maybe we want to show our user what this cat card could potentially look like if they were to save it or to add it. So we already have our cat component. Let's double check. We're importing it right here. Import cat card from components cat card. We're letting app.vue know it exists under components and cat card. Let's go ahead and let's put another cat-card in here. All right. And we know cat.card is expecting a prop of cat, and cat is an object. So we have new cat right here, which contains an object. So let's pass cat card. We know it needs to be called cat. We're going to bind it, and let's bind it to new cat. All right. And then we can close this off. So we're passing in all the data properties of new cat to the cat card. And I'm going to Command S to save. That's pretty cool. So by default now, it's automatically using anything a user types in this add a cat to this first card. So just to make sure, let's go ahead. As we're typing, since these are all, we're using the model to bind these to the new cat card. As we type, it changes. That's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and let's put our cat card inside of. Cool. Cool. So now you can see a preview as you type in "we love cats." I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one since we don't need that. And as they type in information about their cat, they can see a preview of their title, their message, their link. Well, we're passing the link right here. So if we hover over, I think if I click up here and then I hover over, you can see it changing down here in the bottom left-hand corner as I type. So we're actually dynamically changing the URL as we type. We love cats.com. Now, if I delete anything in this image URL, it's probably going to break our image right here. The only other thing I want to do is I don't want to show this cat card when the user initially comes to the page because they haven't provided any information. So by default, all these are going to be blank. All right. So I'm going to leave visible true, but I want to delete the rest of these, and I'm Command S to save. And you can see, let me get rid of this one. All right, and you can see we have a blank green card and then a broken image. So let's use our cat card, and we already have a link, but let's say we'll use a v-if. So we'll do v-if, and then we'll do cat.title. So we're saying if there's a title provided, then do the rest of the card. Let me save this. All right, so there's no title, so we don't get a card right here. So let's just add a title. All right, so now there's a broken link. I don't really want a broken link, so now let's jump down to our link. Where's our, right here, img, right here. So now I don't want to show a broken link, so let's say v-if. All right, and we want to check for a link, so we'll do cat.link. What I meant to say was we wanted to check for cat.image. So when you do this, make sure you use cat.image. So if there's no link provided, don't show me a broken link. All right, so let me get rid of my title. Now you can type down here, you can type right here, you can type right here. But if there's no title provided, it's not going to show you anything. I think I'm going to keep it like that for right now. As soon as we provide a title, we get our preview. All right, I think that's good. So I'm going to end this vModel tutorial right here. I hope you learned a little bit about vModel and how it works. Go ahead, play around with this, change some things around, add some default properties, get rid of some default properties. Like I said in my other tutorials, I feel like the best way to get a grasp on Vue, or any language or framework at that, is to get in and get your hands dirty. Try some things out, break some things, fix some things, and use your Vue DevTools. Thanks for watching. Go ahead, like, subscribe, hit the little bell icon so you get notifications, and I'll see you in the next video.